Hey, what's going on? This is the Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. Norm in London, Mike in Buffalo. It is Friday, May 21st, 2021. It's like a couple of 21s there. And we were rocking and rolling on our first edition of a playoff combo. Unfortunately, we're not talking about good stuff. We're talking about an opening series lost to the Habs by a final of 2-1. The kind of hockey that we figured the Habs would play and the Leafs could fall a victim to transpired in game one. And then some. Of course, the captain getting hit in the head with a Corey Perry knee. We wish him well. Mike, how do you want to start this one?
Yeah, let's start with Tavares because I think that was the sort of the crux of the entire game. I mean, I think the game was different before the incident and different after. It was the way we thought it was going to be before the incident and then different afterward. First of all, I don't think it was purposeful. I don't think that I think it was purely an accident. Ben Sherratt knocks Tavares down. Tavares is rolling around the blue line, trying to get up, and Perry, I think, didn't see him until late and then tried to avoid him, and then the knee contacts the head and face of Tavares with the shield, and maybe the shield prevented more damage than occurred. But the thing that's concerning about Tavares is that he was down, he was out, he rolls over, and when the Leafs medical staff went out there and started talking to him, he was out. I mean, he started to fall back and he was unconscious. Yeah. So, they took the precautionary measures, which they should do. I mean, every time, they put him on the stretcher, they put him on the backboard, they put his neck in a brace. Obviously by him raising his thumb afterward, that there's an indication there that there's no spinal damage or anything of that kind. So that's a relief. And the report from Sheldon Keefe after the game was that he was conscious and communicative, and that the tests were clear. So in terms of long-term effects, it sounds good. In terms of the here and the now in the series, I'm not a doctor. I'll just play one on the Leaf Convo. He's concussed. He's got a concussion. At the absolute minimum, he's got a concussion, and probably a severe one, because the impact of Perry's knee on his head was to the point that he was in la-la land. Mm-hmm. So do I expect John Tavares to be back in this series? I don't. Mm-hmm. I hope that he could make, because I think scheduling-wise, Game 6 or Game 7 would be about 10, 12 days away. That's very soon. I mean, the most you can hope for right now is that John Tavares would be back for the second round at some point, if there is nothing other than a concussion. But it didn't look good, and all we can do is really hope for the best for John, because it was not a purposeful incident, but we did see Carey Price and Perry, who I think both played with Tavares in Sochi at the Olympics. You go over and say something to him as he's coming off the ice. So, I mean, and I have to give the Canadians' Twitter feed right after the incident wished Tavares the best in the speedy recovery. So, which was honestly, a lot of teams wouldn't do that. That was a classy act.
Well, I'm in shock that a lot of teams wouldn't do that. Why wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, I think just in terms of
gamesmanship and
yeah.
Okay, understood. This is the Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. You know me, Norm. You know Mike. We're doing what we do pre and post throughout this playoffs for however long it lasts. Not exactly happy with everything that took place in the opener versus the Habs, a 2-1 loss. John Tavares, we wish him well, whether he's back or not. Great young man, and we want to see him on the ice at some point.
Right.
But Mike, losing him the way the team did at that point of the game, it sucked the life out of this team. And this team needs all hands on deck to accomplish its goals, and to not have the captain and his capability and his possibility of production for as many great players as it has, that's a big loss. It's a complete line shuffle, and the plan that Sheldon Keefe had in place that he was hoping to employ for at least a good period of time to start this playoff had to be modified so early. And I just again the John Tavares injury and the loss, I don't know if they're connected based on him not being there, but it may have kind of set the course for hopefully not what's to come for the entire series, but certainly the game felt the result of the game felt like the indicator was there when Tavares got hit in the head and left the game.
It set the course for game one. I don't know if it's the course for the series, but this is the thing. It's like, I said right after when Foligno dropped the gloves with Perry, that was one of the more useless and pointless fights, because I don't think Perry did it on purpose. And I don't think Foligno thinks he did it on
charade, though, Mike.
But what Foligno did, and after the game, he saying this, I do appreciate why. He said our captain was down on the ice, and that team was in shock. I think both teams were in shock, but more the Leafs, because it's their captain, it's one of their leaders. So Foligno stepped up and said, "Okay, we're not going to take this. We're going to move on. We're going to move forward." And he laid a whooping on Perry. Does that really accomplish anything other than maybe getting the emotions back up for the team?
He tried.
But the thing was, I think that the Leafs were basically in a daze for most of the rest of the first period and early second until the Nylander goal. And then I thought that, pretty much it was a nip and tuck game for the rest of it. But I think that they will respond in terms of, they're going to now have to make some lineup changes. And what you said is, like, they were down to 11 forwards. That was Tavares is their number two, is their, him and Matthews are their cornerstone linchpin number one centers. So then all of a sudden you're either moving Spezza up into the second line, or you move. I think the one that did the most was move Alex Kerfoot in from the wing to center on that line. But that's where Sheldon Keefe is going to have to make some decisions, because I think their best option is to put Kerfoot up the middle. And then you have to decide who you're going to insert. And we can talk about that in a minute. But I just think, they were struggling with 11 forwards. And I have to say, the line that I thought was going to be a big advantage for the Leafs in this series was a line that didn't show up, and that was Thornton, Spezza, and Simmons. Simmons almost got freight trained by Josh Anderson early in the first period. He barely missed getting destroyed. And I didn't notice him for most of the game, except for like sticking Perry late in the first period. He wasn't really much of a physical presence. He wasn't much of a hitting presence. Thornton was on the ice and part of the turnover that led to the game-winning goal. And Spezza took 2 minor penalties that were really careless. So it's like, the Leafs have to step up as a team. I think individuals, Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Hyman played great, but I think that the depth didn't step up.
We see you, OG's converts, in the chat. A lot of negativity right now, and that's okay. I apologize if I'm coming across somber. It's early. Yeah, it's early, and I was in a dead sleep. So I'll be lively here shortly. There's no reason to feel down and out beyond noon today. There's another game. The Leafs will bounce back. Can they still take the series? Of course. I had them in 6, so they're going to lose 2 anyway. Right. So get a loss out of the way. But when you said nip and tuck, Mike, I don't like the idea of the Leafs playing nip and tuck. That's what the playoffs are about. It's physical. It's claustrophobic. Guys are in your face. It's it's nonstop. Sure, the speed will slow down as time goes on. It becomes a little more tactical, but it's very intense. We have yet to see the Leafs commit or play and commit to that kind of game and excel at that kind of game. This is a big opportunity for the Leafs to show their true colors and who they really are. But we know they get out hit, and I hate to bring it up, but the power play, we knew that the power play would either elevate this team if it found its way or become fatal. And in the early going, it was fatal last night. Not only did it not score goals, it gave up a goal.
Well, okay, first,
a shorthanded goal to lose the game late. Like, come on, man. Like, that's
being out hit. We knew the plan for the Canadians. The plan was, and they, we knew it based on the lineup they put together. They put together the biggest lineup, the most experienced lineup that they could put. They put together Perry, Stahl, and Josh Anderson. Of course, Stahl, who had been a complete nothing for like 15, 16 games for the Habs, comes out and plays pretty effectively, because he's a pro and, he's going to show up. And Josh Anderson is a nightmare out there. He's a bull in a china shop. And when he was healthy this year, he played great against the Leafs during the regular season. He had a long stretch where he didn't score, but this is the playoffs and he's turning it on. And he's, like I said, he almost wiped out Simmons. He scores the opening goal. He takes advantage of it. And if it wasn't for a great block by Morgan Riley, he would have put them ahead before the Byron shorthanded goal. So
Mike, just to throw something out at you, the Habs were 0 for 5 with the man advantage. If it wasn't for the Leafs, not scoring on the power play, they put themselves in a tough spot. But had the Habs not been worse with the man advantage, this could have been a 4-5-1 game.
Yeah, they're just as bad as Toronto is on the power play. The special teams in this going into this series were basically even. I mean, they're both in the bottom third of the league penalty killing, and in the middle of the pack on the power play. But the Leafs power play since March is like under 10%. And I mean, the funny thing is, I thought the power play actually looked better and more crisp and more
Sandin back there.
With Sandin back there, and I don't think you can blame Sandin for the shorthanded goal. It was a turnover. He was caught flat-footed. Byron beat him. He tried to, even to the point of taking a penalty to stop him from getting a shot. And then Campbell went out for the poke check, and Byron beats him. But the problem is, and late in the third period, when the Leafs got a power play, Sheldon Keefe put Morgan Riley out there and not Sandin. Mm-hmm. So is that like, okay, he made a mistake, so we're going to go with the more experienced guy who we know has been ineffective on the power play? The power play has been abysmal, and it's been a negative on this team. And you had to hope that it would turn it around in the playoffs, but Game 1 was a microcosm of the regular season. The power play, they have to win 5-on-5, which means you can't take stupid penalties like the puck over the glass, which the Marner penalty and the Nylander penalty were idiotic. Mm-hmm. I mean, even Sheldon Keefe said they were. Well,
Nylander putting it over the there's 3 times he puts it over the glass. But the reason he did that is because he was afraid for his life. He was about to take a hit.
And Marner was rushing, and he flipped it over the puck too. So it's like it was just as bad. And then, like I said, Spezza takes 2 minor. I mean, 5 minors in a playoff game when you're the team that's being out hit.
Mm-hmm. If you can't score on the power play, and scoring shorthanded is a lot less likely than scoring 5-on-5. Just don't. Maybe that's the Leafs' strength. Just don't take penalties. We don't get power plays. We score 5-on-5. Clearly, that was not the case last night, and they paid the price for it. Mike, just a few more points, and we'll get out of here.
Well, I mean, I thought the best player on the ice for both teams was Matthews. He didn't score, but I thought he was dominant, especially. The thing I'm concerned about is if you look at the ice time breakdown, Marner 27 minutes, 27. I mean, more than any of the defensemen, more than any. Yeah. He's reliable. I mean, don't get me wrong, and he's apparently he can do that, but I don't think you can do that every game. But 27 minutes for him, 23 minutes for Matthews, over 20 minutes for Hyman.
What does that tell? What does that tell you about Sheldon Keefe and the way he thought that game was going, and maybe the message he's trying to send?
Well, I think he was. I mean, obviously, with that, he was double shifting them in the third when he fell behind, and without Tavares, he had to do that because those were the only guys who he thought could break through. And then they were on the ice for like the last 3 minutes of regulation because they had the goalie pulled on the power play. So, I mean, the thing is, we went into this series talking about the depth of the Leafs, and with the Tavares injury, now, I mean, we have to talk about this. Okay, so now what does Sheldon Keefe do in terms of changing the lineup? Now, Dyslexic in the chat here is like, any thoughts on Foligno as to why he played only 12 minutes? Well, I think because Foligno is still dinged. He's a pro. He's going to play. But I think, whatever that injury was, back or whatever, he's not 100%. So they're not going to pile on the minutes with him. But that's what it leads me in terms of his question before about, Kerfoot. He doesn't think Kerfoot's up to the task. Well, there aren't many options here. They're not going to promote Jason Spezza to the second line. He's 37 years old. Kerfoot's fast. He's defensively sound. Kerfoot will be most likely, unless it's Foligno, because Foligno played some center in Columbus. Kerfoot's your number 2 center. And then who do you bring in? Do you bring in Alex Galchenyuk? Do you bring in Pierre Engvall? I would think they're going to bring in Engvall and put him on the checking line, replacing Kerfoot with Nash and Mikheyev.
Who elevates which of those guys? And we're already talking about it, but if you're going to come in, you don't have to make a statement, right? But if you're going to come in, who's going to elevate the team, not just kind of be put on a line and be dragged along?
Well, I mean, the question is, where is the guy that you're inserting being placed? Because, okay, take, for example, Kerfoot's now your number 2 center. He moves from third line left wing to second line center. So are you going to move Foligno down to the third line with Riley Nash and Mikheyev on a checking line, which might not be a bad idea because Nash and Foligno were teammates in Columbus. Maybe they played and skated together, so there's a familiarity there. If they do that, then Galchenyuk makes sense because you're putting him in to a top 6 role, which he played for most of the second half of the season, and with Kerfoot and Nylander. Now, if they say, okay, no, we're going to keep Foligno on that second line and with Kerfoot and Nylander, then you're probably going to put Engvall. You're not going to put Adam Brooks in here. You're not going to put Nick Robertson in here. It's probably going to be one of the two, Galchenyuk or Kerfoot. And, I think there's a case for both because I thought Galchenyuk at times played really well at the end of the year, and I think he's got a bone to pick with Montreal, so maybe that's something. And he's physical and he's fast, so maybe, and he can score, so maybe that would be a factor.
Yeah, if the Leafs want to play physical and want to get dirty with the Habs, go to the dirty areas and play that tight checking game, they have to score. Right? Because once they score and they assert themselves and they give themselves a little distance and continue to play that game, I mean, it's demoralizing for the Canadians. But if you're just out there going tit for tat and playing the Canadians game and it's 0-0 late into the second, you're really not accomplishing anything. So it'll be interesting to see how game 2 unfolds. We're already playing musical Leafs with these lines and concepts and combinations already after one game. I don't know if that's just us feeling a little desperate and a little, down and out over what we saw in game 1. And that's just to be expected. Emotions are high. We want the team to do well, but clearly the team's wasn't going to go 16-0. So losses are going to happen. You're going to have tougher losses along the way, but as long as the Leafs can win 4 before they lose 4, then they should be okay. Mike, we haven't even brought his name up. Carey Price, the kid, like the guy is, just in his eyes and his positioning, the way he plays. This is Carey Price playoff style hockey that we are witnessing right now. I mean, he's done it in the past. He doesn't know how many more times he's going to have to do it going forward. If this is it for one series, great. If this is it for a deep playoff run, great too. That cat, be careful.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, okay, in the first two periods, and let me say this off the top. Jack Campbell was not responsible for this loss. I don't think Jack.
No.
I think Jack
That's
Campbell.
why we're not talking about him.
Yeah, I think Jack Campbell played very well. How did they score? 2 breakaways. That's how they scored. 2 break. Well, Byron was basically a breakaway, and Anderson was a breakaway. So and he made a fantastic save on another breakaway, I think late in the first period or in the second. So I thought he was steady and solid, and there's no reason not to go with Campbell in game 2. But Carey Price was good in the first 2 periods, but didn't have a lot of there was a few offensive chances. But in the third period, especially that ridiculous save, the blocker save that he makes on Marner. I mean, that's what you had to be afraid of when it came to this series, that Carey Price was going to just turn it on and come back and play like he did in the bubble last year against Pittsburgh. Now, what the Leafs have to do, and this is the whole point of having this veteran core group, last year against Columbus, I think their sphincters tightened when things got tough in that first round, and Korpisalo is standing on his head, and there wasn't that depth of in the lineup that there is now. I think that there was some pressing by some of the key players, and they just couldn't score except for that window at the end of Game 4 where they scored 3 goals. Okay, you've got the experience there. You've got the Thorntons and the Spetzes and whoever. You have to fall back on that experience, and that experience means the series is not 1 game; it's 7 games. And you have to. And what you have to do to Price is get in his kitchen, is get in front of the net, is block his view. You tip the puck. I mean, that's what you if you're going to go to war, go to war. You cannot just allow him to see the puck, because he's going to stop it 99 times out of 100.
I noticed, especially on a power play, a setup for Marner or Matthews, blast. Come on, guys. Like that's even Matthews with his big shot really look at the goal they scored. It was Nylander down low. Price couldn't contain a rebound. Nylander chips it in. Those you need 5 of those. And
the one timer can work, but it has to be like no delay whatsoever. Catching the goalie out of position, testing his lateral movement. But I didn't say that Price was there all. So I think they have to change their tactics a little bit. And like I said, now the thing is, it's easier said than done with 4 big defensemen that the Habs have in Edmondson, Petrie, Sherratt, and Weber, getting to the front of the net. But that's what Simmons and Foligno and these guys have to do. They have to get to the front of the net, and they have to cause havoc. And one of the only players who was doing that last night was Hyman. And Hyman got drilled 3 or 4 times, one by Sherratt late in regulation.
Yeah. We're talking about all the Leafs getting drilled.
Yeah.
All the Leafs are getting drilled.
Yeah.
The Leafs are getting drilled.
Because
there's 2 teams on the ice, and the other guys in Blue, Blanc, and Rouge can get drilled too. Who's doing it?
Well,
right?
I mean, and that was the other point I was going to make is, okay, they have very few skill players. You need to beat on Toffoli. You need to beat on Gallagher. You need to beat on Tatar. You need to beat on Suzuki, because if you beat on those guys and wear them down, they have nobody to score goals. Nobody. And now they hesitated to bring in a young Cole Caulfield into a playoff situation, and now they probably won't do it until they absolutely have to. If they're not, maybe they're.
And then he'll score an overtime goal.
Well, he's a great young kid, so I mean he's a great young prospect. But I'm just saying the Leafs, not that they didn't have any pushback, as Steven is saying. I think they had, I think they were taking more than giving, and I think they have to be more aggressive. But I wouldn't have a problem with them taking penalties if they're slamming Habs players into the boards, if they're throwing their bodies around. Their penalties were up over the glass, hooking and hold. It was like, make them pay a price.
Make them pay a price and beat Price. Can they do both? Last thing, Mike, if you're Sheldon Keefe and you have everybody in the room right now, well, what are you projecting? Like, are you already tipping your hand and showing that you're nervous, or do you remind the guys, look, we're better than this team. We could have won that game. Just go keep playing our game, and with any luck, there will be improvements along the way. Last word.
I think you say to your team after game one, everything that they wanted to happen happened.
Yep.
And they won by a goal. For the rest of this series, you have to make things happen that they don't want to happen. And if you do, you'll win by more than a goal. That's what people say.
Hey, the Leafs outshot the Habs last night, but that's where the advantage is stopped. Habs won on faceoffs, 56-44%. Neither team can score on the power play. First team that does might even win the series. Leafs had more penalty minutes, were completely out-hit, out-blocked, and both teams gave away 16 pucks each. Like, I don't know, if the Leafs want to win a Stanley Cup, you're going to have to start asserting yourself and putting some distance between you and the Habs. Didn't start in game one. Perhaps we start incrementally moving that way in game two. Mike, thanks for doing this morning. OG's Converse. We know you have work and other things to accomplish today. Go have a great one. Shake this one off. Game two's coming Saturday, and the Leafs Convo will be all over it. Michael, see you, buddy.
Thanks, Norm.